This is Maria Angela Wells interviewing Anastasia Kuznetsova on 18th of May 2018 at The Gap in Balsall Heath. Anastasia was born in Kazan, Russia in 2003. She migrated to Birmingham in 2014. Can you describe for us the place that you were born?
I was born in Kazan, which is the capital of a republic called Tartarstan. Tartarstan is one of the largest republics in Russia, and Kazan is a very large city, and it has its own language and its own traditions. Kazan is a beautiful city with many landscapes. It has bears also and all sorts of animals. It has forests and more than 2 million people, or even more than that, I think. And Kazan is the third capital of Russia.
Can you tell me more about the landscape?
Kazan, in my city and in the surrounding areas of the city, we have some mountains, we have forests, as I've said, and the nature is beautiful because we have open lakes, open ponds, and we have the largest lake in Russia, which is, no, not the largest. We have the lake called Volga, which goes through some places in Russia, including my city. And in the summer, the Russian people really like to swim in lakes because it can be very, very, very hot. And also in Tatarstan, in the Republic of Russia, we have our own traditions, and it's a different culture which is closer to some Asian cultures.
Can you tell us more about the people of Kazan?
Personally, I think the people in Kazan are very kind, understanding, and generally nice people. And in my city and in the Republic of Tartarstan, I would like to point out that we have our own language, and our own language is called Tartar language, and Tartar language was originally came from Arabic language, but I think in 1900s the language was altered, and before it used Arabic letters and symbols, but and now and in the 20th century Stalin made the language to have Cyrillic letters, so it can be maybe easier to learn or something. And the vast majority of people, I would say everybody, speaks the language in the Republic of Tartarstan, including me. No, actually, everybody is learning the language, the Tartar language, in schools, and I was learning it as well, which was my second language, and I would say it's a complex language. It's not hard, it's not easy to learn, and the Tartar language now has 39 letters. Yes, it has 39 letters, and it's even harder than the Russian language. And unfortunately, I have forgotten the language, which is quite sad because when I go back, I can't talk to anybody in that language. And if I was still in my school, I would have done exams in that language. So I would have done exams in Russian and Tartar language, and it's a very good language, I think.
What about the culture in the area?
Personally, the culture in the Republic of Tartarstan is my favorite culture because we have our own traditional dishes, we have our own celebrations, which I really, really like. I would like to say that in the Republic of Tartarstan, most people are Muslim. So in the Republic of Tartarstan and Kazan, we have a lot of mosques, especially in the city center, and and yes, and the Islamic culture overpowers the Russian Orthodox religion, which I think it's quite good. About food, well, mainly in the Republic of Tartarstan, we have a lot of pastries. We have our own traditional pastries, and we have and also people in the Republic of Tartarstan. Some traditional people can also drink tea from bowls, not from cups but bowls. Yes, and in normal food supermarkets, they sell the traditional Tartar food there, and the food is very close to some Asian food because Kazan is in Eurasia, which is between Europe and Asia, and it can't really be identified as Europe or Asia. So that's why the food is closer to the Asian food. Well, in the culture we have soups, we have traditional desserts, and in technology classes we would cook the traditional food as well. And my grandmother would have a book of some Tartar recipes, and would cook some Tartar food. And actually, we do not have any spicy food because people are not adapted to it. In a way, we have neutral food.
Can you tell how is Kazan different from other cities?
Well, from my perspective, Kazan is a very, very unique city. Because Kazan is very different from the European Russia, for example, Moscow or St. Petersburg, because obviously, as I previously mentioned, we have our own traditions and our own culture. And also, Kazan is very, very modern, and it's a very spacious city, and it's large, and there are plenty of things to do. Well, we have museums, we have parks, and we have our own Kremlin, which is called the Kazan Kremlin. And the difference between the Moscow Kremlin is that the Kazan Kremlin is actually white, not red but white, and there's a star on the top of the Kremlin as well. Yes, and there's a white wall built around the Kremlin as well. In Kazan, we have some universities which are pretty good, I suppose. We also have a large city centre with lots of shops and things for tourists to do. We have a large arena called the Kazan Arena, in which there would be the Football World Cup this year. In Kazan also we have beautiful parks, one of which is called the Gorky Park, which was named after the famous writer. Parks are very large and beautiful. We have big roads, motorways, we have a big airport which is quite modern and comfortable. In Kazan, people in Kazan live quite well, I think, and living conditions and living standards in my city is better than Moscow and St. Petersburg, which is quite shocking, but the recent statistics showed that. And I think also we have shopping centres we have coffee shops, we have everything a person needs, and that is all about my city.
Can you tell us a bit about your family history?
Oh yes, I have some things to tell you about my Russian family history. Well, in my family, there's my mom, my granddad, my grandmother, my uncle, and that is all. I do not have any cousins, surprisingly, but I have some third, fourth cousins. I don't know if there's a specific name for them, but they live very, very far away in Russia, and I do not see them at all. But my grandparents visit them sometimes. Well, so I had a great granddad from from my granddad and my grandmother. My great granddad fought in World War II, and in particular he was defending Leningrad. So my great granddad fought under Leningrad, and he was injured in the battle quite severely, quite badly. And then he retired from war because obviously he was injured. And then he took some time off, and the injury healed, and he just got on with his normal life. He had the bees, he was planting things, he was looking after the garden and all of that. Also, my granddad's uncle fought in the war, but he was sent to a camp, unfortunately. My great great granddad from my grandmother's side owned a windmill, and as a result of that, he was sent to a camp. He was sent to Gulag, and the whole family died of starvation because of Stalin, which is very miserable to think about, really, and it's very, very sad for the whole of the family. And yes, I don't know why Stalin did that, but yes, the family had no more food left, and this happened. And we don't really know whether he survived or somebody killed him. That's quite interesting, actually. Great. I also had a great granddad from my grandmother's side, but I don't know much about him. But he was called Timofey, and I think from the stories which I heard, he was a really kind man, and from the stories which I heard of my family, all of the people from the 20th century were very kind in my family, which I think passed on through generations. And yes, about my grandparents. My granddad worked in the army, and he was the head of the Russian army in the 20th century. My granddad worked in nuclear rocket forces, and my grandmother worked as a retailer in the Soviet Union. And being a retailer in the Soviet Union was a very prestigious job. It was seen as something very, very good because my grandmother got some decent money, I think, and she was able to get some unique things like some chocolate or some juices that most people did not get. And from my family, my mom told me some really interesting stories of my grandparents from the Soviet Union, and I know a lot of stories from the Soviet Union, how my family lived, how my uncle was born, what they did in the spare time, and from what I know, my mum had a very happy childhood. They went out to parks, they went to cafes, they had a very enjoyable life. And then, well, when my mum was 9, my uncle was born, but unfortunately their lives were ruined when the Soviet Union collapsed. Because when the Soviet Union collapsed, people lost their jobs. There was just a large chaos. People did not know what to do, and everybody, including my family, thought there was going to be a war. So they thought my granddad would have to fight in the war, and everybody and every single person was morally and physically preparing for something awful to happen. Yes, these stories in particular were not really pleasant for me to hear, because that's quite devastating. But I'm happy that people got over it, over the stress and the crisis, the collapse of the Union. But yes, but before the collapse, their lives are fine. They were really, really good lives. And my mum knows a lot about my granddad's job, and my mum, and my granddad had a specific uniform for his army. He had a cap, and he had some stars and medals, medals for bravery, I suppose, or for ruling the army, or something like that. And yes, that is all I can tell you about my family. Oh no, I missed things out. I'm sorry. I would like to say that both of my grandparents are from a little village. My granddad, as well as my grandmother, were born in a small village under Saratov, and in the village they had its own language. It is not very surprising, because Russia has over 200 languages, which is quite shocking for most people to hear. And I really like that we kept all the languages and they still exist, because it's a really important tradition, I think, for a nation, for a country. Yes, so it was a small village, and the village from what I've heard, my granddad had a very happy childhood. He was swimming in the lake. He was eating fresh eggs from the chicken. He was eating good bread. He was running in a wheat field. He had a very dynamic, happy childhood. So did my grandmother, and my grandmother actually was born in the parallel village. So her village was just across the lake from my granddad's village, and as my granddad told me, he had to walk 5 kilometers every day to his school, which was quite hard, but he said he really enjoyed that, because he had a very active lifestyle, a very healthy lifestyle, and he would walk in deep snow, he would walk in rain, in hail, he would walk in any weather conditions to his school. Yes, he really enjoyed going to school, and so did my grandmother. And when they went to secondary school, that's when they met, and that's when their love story started. It was the love of the first sight. It was really pleasant for me to hear how they actually met, and I remember that as they both saw each other, they knew something. They knew that they potentially knew they were made for each other. and when they met, they they started going out, obviously, and then my granddad was sent to a boarding school. It's not a boarding school, but it was but you did not have to pay for it. It was a school. It was a school in Saratov. In Saratov, it was a secondary school, and the reason why my granddad was sent to another school was because it was, of course, difficult to walk 5 kilometers every day to his village school, and the school in his village only provided primary education, and he obviously needed secondary education, so that's why he was sent to another school in Saratov. Yes, and in the school, he slept. He was sleeping. He was eating, and he would only come home maybe every weekend, or maybe even I think once in every 2 weeks he would go home and visit his parents, his grandparents, and all of that. He really enjoyed the school, and I would like to say that my granddad was an athlete. He was almost a professional athlete, and he was quite close to doing the Olympic things. He was a strong man. He was running, he was jumping, he was doing all sorts of things. He could do handstands, just anything athletes could do. My granddad could do that. He was very active. He really enjoyed PE, and my granddad knows some people who have participated in the Olympics. So my granddad knows a couple of people who won medals in the Olympics, which is quite fascinating. And then when he left school, they reunited with my grandmother as well, and he proposed to her. I don't remember the month of the proposal, but he proposed to her, and they married on 5th of February. They married on the 5th of February 1972. I remember the date because in Russian the dates rhyme. It's hard to explain, but that's the reason why I remember the date of their marriage. Yes, and then after a few years, my mother appeared. My beautiful mother appeared, and 9 years later, my uncle appeared. And yes, and this brings us back to where we started. But that's all I can say about my family history.
What was your family life like?
From my childhood, I have quite a lot of memories, and I would say I had a very comfortable childhood. I had a very good childhood. I had an amazing childhood. I had all the things I needed because of my family. My early family life. Growing up, my mum and my grandparents raised me. My mum worked really hard at work. She had about 3 or 4 jobs because she had to get money to raise me and all of that. She had quite good jobs actually, and most of the time I was with my grandparents, which I really enjoyed. As a little Russian child, my grandmother fed me, washed me, brought me clothes. They've done everything they needed to do. They taught me letters, taught me how to count, taught me everything, taught me the principles of life and all of that. I would like to say that my my mum had quite a lot of business trips when I was little, so she left me with my grandparent, which was okay because I quite enjoyed being with my grandparents. My mum would fly to different countries because she had because she was very busy at work. Yes. At weekends, we would go to the cinema. We would go to parks. We would walk. We would play. From when I was 4, I went to the kindergarten. In Russia, we do not have nurseries, but instead we have a kindergarten, which was a usual a normal kindergarten, and it provided everything I needed. From what I can remember, the kindergarten was quite comfortable. I would go there in the morning and return home in the evening. I had food there. I remember they would give us porridge, soups, some traditional Tartar food, and in the kindergarten I would learn the Tartar language, which I quite enjoyed because we had some interesting sessions there. And also we had a special room for learning the Tartar language with all the cultural toys, with all the traditional food and the traditional carpet, and it was very, very interesting, and I quite enjoyed that. And I think it was every day we had the Tartar language lessons. Everybody around me was pretty much Tartar. Yes, so I had Tartar friends, and I still do now. Pretty much all of my friends are Tartar, and I'm quite Tartar myself, actually. I suppose. Yes, well, in the kindergarten, they taught us letters, numbers. They taught us how to play, how to read. They taught us how to draw. And I remember every Wednesday we would have drawing lessons, which I enjoyed very much. And the best thing about the kindergarten was that I met my best friend there, which was and she was also Tartar, and I'm still in touch with her now. My best friend is called Dilara. And after the kindergarten, I would sometimes visit her house, and she would visit my house. And I remember my best friend from the who I met in the kindergarten. She had a very nice grandmother, and she still does now. She's still alive. She's I would go to her house, and her grandmother would cook us traditional Tartar food. So she would feed us with some Tartar soups, Tartar pastries, and at home they all spoke Tartar, and I did not really speak Tartar that much at that stage in my life, but at home in my best friend's house they all spoke Tartar. Her mum, she spoke Tartar, her granddad, her grandmother, her sister, yes, and which was quite nice actually. Her grandmother was a traditional Tartar grandmother, and she would call her grandmother grandmother in Tartar. Even when she was talking and speaking Russian to her or to me, she would refer to her as a grandmother in Tartar, which is Davnika, which is quite nice, I think. And I sometimes called my grandmother Davnika as well, which I thought was quite nice. Yes. Yes, she was a very traditional Tartar grandmother, and so was her granddad. I think he worked in the army as well. Yes, I'm pretty sure he did. I finished kindergarten when I was 7, and after that I went to school. The kindergarten was very good. I think I'm really glad my mum took me there, because in the kindergarten, in the summer we would walk, we would explore the area, and the teachers were very nice that taught us. And I would like to point out that the teachers were Tartar themselves, so they spoke Tartar with each other. In the kindergarten I was not really fluent in Tartar. I understood some of Tartar language, but not all of it. I could not really speak fluently in it. And that is all.
Can you describe school life?
Well, I think I have quite a lot of things to say about my school. Firstly, my school was called School Number 121, and I would like to start off with the fact that in Russia we do not have names for schools. Our schools are just by numbers. So, for example, school number 38 or school number 55 or school number 273 and all of that. And my school was not an exception. It was called School Number 121. Also, the schools in Russia are divided into 3 categories. So our schools are divided into lyceums, gymnasiums, and just normal common schools. And I went to a lyceum, if you know what it is, and a lyceum is, I think it. A lyceum is a Soviet term, I think, and because the schools are still from the Soviet times, the names are still with them, and they have not changed at all. So, as far as I know, a lyceum is the most prestigious type of school, I assume, but they're not private. They're free schools. It just depends on where you live. So, for example, if you lived closer to a lyceum, you would go to a lyceum. If you lived closer to a gymnasium, you would go to a gymnasium. Gymnasium number 248, for example. Or you'd go to a lyceum number 35, for example. And my school was called, as I previously mentioned, Lyceum number 121. The schools in Russia are much smaller than in England. Our schools do not have a territory surrounding the school, so it's just the building. Most of the time, we have 3 floors in our schools, and there aren't as many students as in England. So, I started school when I was 7. That might seem quite shocking, because in England you start school when you are 4. But I actually started the primary school as I was 7, because we have a different education system back in my country. I don't know why that is. When I was 6, I was still playing in the kindergarten, whereas in England you would have been carrying books, doing lessons when you were 6. Yes, the first day of school in Russia starts on the 1st of September. And in Russia, the 1st of September is a very significant date, because 1st of September is seen as the celebration of education and celebration of learning and all of those positive things. And the 1st of September is basically called the celebration of the first bell, because obviously the first bell rings. And every year, strictly, very, very strictly, every person goes to school on the 1st of September, and it cannot be delayed. So every year it's just on the 1st of September, and it can't be on the 2nd of September. Everybody has to start school on the 1st of September. 1st of September. Yes, so 1st of September. On the 1st of September every year we have a large assembly in the school courtyard in front of the school, where parents, teachers, the head teacher, the students meet, and they bring balloons, flowers to the teachers, and some gifts from summer, I assume. Yes, and there are some performances in the courtyard, some songs performed, some dances from the older students, I assume, yes. And then most of the time we are given a balloon, and we set off balloons to the sky, and it's just a symbol of a new start, and all of that. Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about the teachers and the subjects?
Well, the teachers in Russia are very, very strict, unlike the teachers in England, because in Russia the teachers keep you under pressure, and pressurize you into doing more and more work. And the teachers are, yes, very hard, very tough teachers, and they give you a lot of homework. And after school you would have, even in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, you would have about 3 or 4 hours of homework each day. Or actually it can vary. It depends what teacher you get, but generally the teachers give you lots of homework, so you learn a lot at home, so you are prepared for the next lesson. Some aspects of the school I actually really liked, but some aspects I did not like. For example, I would talk about the school facilities. In Russia, the school facilities are quite poor, I suppose, and quite miserable, because Russian schools get much less funding than the English schools do, and a lot of schools are quite poor, and that they do not have enough money to afford a calculator or even computers or pieces of paper or paint, some simple things like that. Well, in my school, fortunately, we had a library. It was a small library where you could borrow books and all of that. I did that. I borrowed some books. The library was quite nice. But as I've said, most schools do not have a library. Most schools do not have any computers, any calculators, any colored pens, anything like that. We only have textbooks and just general books that you write on in lessons. And yes, the school was quite small, and the canteen was very small, and the people who sold the food were not particularly nice from my perspective. They were quite harsh and intolerant. Yes, the canteen. In the canteen we had some tables. It wasn't spacious. It was quite a small space because there weren't as many students in the school, as I mentioned. In the canteen, we were able to purchase some traditional Russian food, like soups. You would eat soups, porridge. You would eat some pastries. They also sold some traditional Tartar food, obviously, because because the school was in the capital of the republic, so we had some traditional Russian food. Well, we had cards in the canteen, so before purchasing something, we had to show them their cards, I think, and normal meals would be for free, but if you wanted to purchase a juice, or a pastry, or a waffle, or I don't know, a milkshake, or some crisps, or a lollipop, I don't know, you would have to pay them money. Yes, the chefs there were not very nice, as I mentioned. Sometimes they would ignore you and not turn up if you were holding your money. I still remember their faces now. Oh yes, the free meals. Our school had free meals, like we had porridge, soup, some traditional food. We had mashed potato, salads, just sausages. The food was not very pleasant, and in England the food is much better. The quality of food is better in English schools. Yes. So as you come into my school, there is a gate, but what I didn't like about it is that anybody can walk on the school area. So, for example, a stranger could just I don't know be on the school's courtyard. So anybody could be walking on the school courtyard. The courtyard was not particularly massive. It was quite long, and on both sides of the courtyard there was grass, some flowers planted. There were trees. There were Christmas trees. There were normal trees. It was quite nice. Yes. The interior of the school was quite well decorated. I think the walls were nice, very good walls. We had some plants there, yes. I really liked the decorations in the school. The classrooms. Well, the classrooms are very different from the classrooms in England, because in Russia all the tables are structured into rows, unlike England where you could have tables facing each other and tables being in squares and all of that. So in Russia it's just strictly so it's only structured by rows, which is quite traditional from the Soviet times and all of that. Our desks were quite good. I really liked the desks. We had good chairs as well. I remember wooden and metal chairs. I really liked them. They were very comfortable. And in Russian schools, on the side of the desks, there were small pegs to hang your bag on, which was very convenient and very useful, because if you had a backpack, you were able to hang your bag on the little hanger or on the side of the table. Of course, we had large windows, and in Russia we had a lot of plants in classrooms. I don't know the reason for that, but I assume it's a tradition. We had some interesting plants. We had aloe vera. We had some tropical plants, which we had to water sometimes. Oh yes, and another interesting fact about the Russian school is that is that we do not have whiteboards, but instead of that, in Russia we still have the chalkboards, and the chalkboards are in every school, and honestly, believe me, we do not have any whiteboards, so we still had to use chalk. Even 3 years ago, we still had to use chalk to write things, and we still do now. Every school uses chalk. And as a present, some parents bought the teachers some chalk because the chalk would obviously run out. And I think it's very ecological, the chalk, because you know, plastic pens, plastic whiteboards, it's not ecologically friendly and all of that. And that was quite good, the chalkboards. I really enjoyed writing on those, even though it was quite difficult sometimes. But I think it's a really pleasant tradition to keep. Yes. What else? The classrooms were not particularly big. There were just square classrooms, normal classrooms, and from our classrooms we would see the street, we would see the people walking past. We had normal floor. We had curtains. Oh yes. And now I would like to talk about the education system. So the education system in Russia, we do not have any SATs. So in Russia, when you are in year 6, but in Russia the year 6 is year 4. So you do not have to take an exam or a test or anything like that. You were just automatically moved up to year 7 or year 5 in Russia, and from when you were 7 you were put into first class. So when you first started school, you started the first class, and then when you were 8 you started the second class, and then you would finish primary school, as they would call it in England, when you were 11 years old or 10 years old in some instances. Also, I would like to say that in Russia we do not have separate buildings or separate schools for primary and high schools. So in Russia you just had one school you had to go to. So your high school was also your primary school, and nothing really changed. You just moved floors. So for example, when you were in primary school, you were on the first floor, for example, and when you went to high school, your classroom was on the second floor, for example. And another very, very interesting fact I would like to say is that in Russia we have only lessons in your form classes. So in Russia you do not have any lessons with the parallel classes or any other classes. You would just be with your form until you are 18. So you would be in your form for 11 years. You would see the same people, same faces, and all of that. But well, of course, in the middle, some people would leave, which in my instance happened. I left the school, and which was quite sad in a way to leave all of my comrades, my friends, my teachers. But oh well, there needs to be some changes. Some other people left as well. I think 2 or 3 people left. About the education system. Well, in Russia, in the summer, we have 3 months holidays. So in the summer, instead of getting 6 or 7 weeks off, you just have 3 months off. It was quite fun having 3 months off. And then when I went to England, I thought 7 weeks off was quite poor and quite devastating, because before I had 3 months off. And imagine what kinds of things you can do in 3 months. Well, 3 months, that's a long time. And in 3 months we had to read some books. We had to just repeat the timetable. We had to maybe just refresh our memory, but generally we did not have to go back on what we've learned. We were just playing outside and all of that. Also, interestingly, in Russia you have to go to school on Saturday, and that is compulsory. So every single person, whether you are in primary school or in year 11 you have to go to school on Saturday. Everybody does. And in my instance, I woke up on Saturday and went to school. And on Saturdays, the Russian students have about 7 lessons or 6 lessons on Saturday. So on Saturday you would go back home at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the evening. And plus you had to get some homework done, so that was not very nice. And in primary school you had less lessons. So for example, on Saturdays I would only have about 4 lessons or 3 lessons, which was okay. And another interesting thing with the Russian school is that our lessons last 45 minutes, unlike England, where your lessons last an hour. I think 1 hour is much better than 45 minutes, because it's not very much, only 45 minutes of a lesson, considering that it takes 5 minutes, for example, to get sat down, to open your book, to get your pen out. So continuing with the Russian school. Last thing about the Russian school is that, interestingly, as the teacher walks in, everybody has to stand up and greet the teacher with a hello, and discipline has to be maintained at all times. And another last thing about the Russian school is that when you answer a question, you strictly have to put your hand up, and when you are answering a question you have to stand up. And yes, which is quite interesting. I think it's because of respect. You have to be respectful to the teacher and all of it.
Can you tell us about when you were told you were going to move and what that journey was like when you moved to Birmingham?
I do not remember much about my parents telling me that we were going to move to England, but I think they just briefly mentioned it, and they just said, "Oh, we will move to England. Be mentally prepared," and something along the lines. And I just thought, "Oh, moving to England, that's okay. I do not mind, as long as I have food and clothes and a roof over my head." So I was not really worried about moving to England. I was just contemplating about it for a year. I think a year before they told me, but I was not really thinking. I just thought, "Oh, moving, okay, I will move. That's fine." So just a few weeks before I was going to start my school in England, and year 7 in particular, we moved to England. And the journey consisted of going in the car from my house to the train station in Kazan, in the city centre. And then we took a train to Moscow, which took 14 hours on the train. Yes, that might seem shocking, but yes, the distances between cities are very, very large in Russia. So, for example, it takes about 10 hours to get from one city to another in a car. Yes, the distances are large, and between them are forests, bears, wild cats, wild dogs, I don't know, wild animals, deers, and all of that. Yes, and then as we arrived to Moscow, as we arrived at the train station, we walked around a bit, and we took a train to the Moscow airport, Domodedovo, I suppose it was, or Sheremetyevo. I do not quite remember, but that is not important. Yes, we went to the airport, waited for the flight, and yes, we boarded on the flight and we flew into the sky. And the journey on the plane took 3 hours 40 minutes or 4 hours, and I think that's normal. That's not much. That's not very much, considering some flights at 12 hours and that. Yeah, so we arrived to Oh yes, we arrived to London. We arrived to London Heathrow Airport, which is the main airport in London. And then my stepdad's dad took us to Birmingham in the car, and as I arrived into London Heathrow, I thought, oh, what a big airport it is! It's much larger than the Moscow airport, much larger than the Kazan airport. I was quite surprised, and yes, that was my first impression of England. It's quite large, and the air is quite clean, actually, I thought. Yes, we were in the car, and then as we arrived, we went to my stepdad's parents' house, and we stayed there for a week, or we stayed there for a few days, about 3 days, I think, from what I can remember. And then because my stepdad already had a house here in Birmingham, we went there after a few days. Yeah, so as I entered the house, I thought, oh, what a big house this is. I have never really lived in a house before in my life, because everybody in Russia lives in flats and apartments, and I think only 1% of people live in houses, so it's very very rare if you live in a house. So if you live in a house in Russia, you have to build it yourself or pay a lot of money to the retailers or something to buy the house. And yes, it's for wealthy people, the houses in Russia, unlike England, where pretty much everybody lives in houses. And I was really surprised about that. I thought, oh, what a paradise this is, living in your own house, having your own garden. What a delight this is. It's wonderful. It's like having your own castle. I thought our house was so big. It was like a castle. It was our own world. We had our own garden, which I was fascinated by. I thought, oh, we have our own trees. Oh, how amazing this is. We could plant some flowers. We can plant any flowers we want. I thought, oh, this was great. We can do anything. We do not have neighbors. We do not have to take a lift if we want to go down the stairs or up the stairs. Oh, how great. I was really enjoying I really enjoyed living in the house, because we had all the water, we had all the facilities, and I thought it was so modern, and I just thought the people in England are so lucky to have this amazing opportunity of living in houses and having your own house and your own property, and not just a flat with 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms. Yes, I thought that was just amazing. I cannot describe my excitement as I entered the house. Yes, so as I entered the house, I thought it was very modern. After a few weeks, I got used to it, and I got used to the fact that we actually live in a house. And yes, as the time got closer to September, I started thinking about school and what the school will be like, and my parents were mentally and morally preparing me, and we got my English uniform, and when we got my English uniform, I thought, oh my goodness, this is very smart. The students in England are very smart, and I was really surprised that they had very strict uniform in England, because in Russia, in primary school, you have some sort of uniform, but it's not. But you can just wear smart things, but not necessarily a uniform. And most of the time, most Russian schools do not have uniforms, so you have to wear a shirt and some smart things to school, so you look appropriate, um, and respectful, and all the yes. My form included a blazer, a tie, a shirt, a skirt, black shoes, and tights. I thought at first that it would be a very good school because the uniform was very good. I thought, oh, a blazer, a tie. That's very interesting. I never wore a blazer and a tie to school. I have never worn it in my life at all. I thought that would be interesting to try it on, to go to school like that. And I was also surprised by the fact that in PE we also had a uniform. So in PE we had to get a specific shirt, some specific skirts, some socks, yes, and all of that. Yes, so school in England. That was quite scary. A few days before starting school in England, we had a tour. We had a very quick tour with my parents in the school, and we entered the gate, and a teacher walked us around the school, and I thought, oh, the school is so big. I would get lost in here. How would I remember where anything is? How would I remember where a classroom is? Or how would I remember how to get to the maths block, or how to do this? I thought, oh, I need a map. I cannot really go around. This is very, very scary. And the school was that big, and I was really intimidated by the size of the school. I thought, oh, school, and it has a field. It has this. It has a stadium. It has it has a playground. It has benches. It has streets. It has a big tree. It has everything you need. And the classrooms looked very, very big, and the canteen looked very large and spacious. I thought, oh my goodness, how would I be able to walk around, or who would guide me to a classroom and all of that? And then as I left school, I obviously told my mum of what I thought about the school and how large it is. And then yes, so my first day at school. I think it was the 7th of September or the 6th of September. And my stepdad went with me into the school to just show me where I need to go. And I thought it was strange that at the start of the day we had to go to form, unlike in Russia where we just had to go to our first lesson. Yes, I thought that was very strange. Yes, I entered the form. I went to form, and the teacher, my form tutor, she explained us what the school is, and I did not understand anything. And then, actually before that we had an assembly made by the head teacher, and in the assembly I could not understand a word he was saying. Unfortunately, I could not understand anything he was saying. Actually, I was just sitting there and looking at how he was saying things, pronouncing things. I really did not know English at that point, because of course I was taught English in my school, but I was not taught it very well and taught it properly, so I had to do additional courses along with school, which helped a little bit, but not much. I still did not really know proper English. I did not understand anything people were saying. Yes, I was a foreigner to everybody. Yes, assembly. I did not know what the assembly was about. I didn't. I cannot tell you anything about the assembly, actually. I think the head teacher was saying how good the school is and what the expectations are, but I didn't know. And then we were set to go to our forms, and I went to form and all of that. People thought I was strange, and people were talking about me saying, "Oh, who is that? Who is this stranger? Why is she not talking? Why is she not understanding?" and all of that. I thought, oh well, I would just sit here. Then yes, after after some months passed, people thought I was an alien, and people referred to me as an alien. People thought I was from a different planet because I did not understand them, or I did not understand the culture of the school or how the education system worked. I was really confused in the school. Why is this? Why do we have to do that? Why? Why don't we have textbooks and all of that? Yes, and then after some years passed, after a year passed, some people were being xenophobic and discriminating me. I think that's quite common for people, because if you have a foreigner, of course people would discriminate you and call you things and all of that. But I did not really pay attention to that. I just thought the school was a paradise. The school was heaven, because the food was really good. The quality of food was amazing, and I thought the teachers, they were so kind. And the school had paint. The school had calculators. The school had computers. I thought, it's fascinating. The school has computers. I never saw that before in my life. The school has so many things. It has a library. The school has the school has pens, coloring pencils. The school has a gym. The school has a sports hall. The school has a big hall. The school has some stadiums. The school has a field. The school has buildings. The school has multiple buildings. I was really surprised about that. I thought, oh my goodness, this is like this is like I'm on a different planet. I could not really think about my other school, my old school. I thought, poor people in my old school. I really wanted to take them to my school just to show them, and I wished they were here with me. Yes, and still after the few months, I still did not understand anything. But as the time went on, I adapted with the language and I understood more. Yes, and I would like to mention that when the Brexit was first happening, people thought I would get deported back, which is quite common for people to do that, because I don't know why they were saying that. They thought I would get deported on a ship and all of that. Yes, some people were horrible, some people were nice, some people were kind, some people were not as kind, some people were mimicking my accent and making fun of it and all of that. But as the time went on, I thought that was my individuality, and as the time went on, I thought that's why I'm unique. Everybody's unique, and I'm unique because I'm from Russia and not from England. And I thought, that's good. It's good to stand out, actually, because I'm not with the crowd. I'm not an English person, and that is fine. And I accepted that after some time. And so did the classmates and the people in school. They accepted me. Yes, but generally the school was very good, and my first impression was very good of the school, and I thought, what an amazing school this is. And I was really surprised by the fact that we did not have any homework in year 7, because in Russia, when I was in year 5 and year 4 and year 6, we had about 3 hours of homework each day, and we had to work at home until the 8 in the evening, from early morning till the evening, to do the homework, to work hard. And you were really tired, you had headaches, your back would hurt and all of that. You had to learn poems, you had to learn long poems, you had to learn stories, you had to do public presentations in front of the class. And in England, the teachers were less pressurizing, and I thought, oh, this is a very relaxed environment, and I really liked it. I thought, oh, the teachers are just very, 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 very lovely, and I thought, oh, thank you so much to them.
What do you think of Birmingham?
From my perspective, I think Birmingham is a very industrial city, which is which is a common opinion, because of course factories were here and all the industrial things were here. And I think Birmingham is a dull city. It's quite dull, colourless, and it is very modern but dull at the same time. There are a lot of houses, and the good thing about Birmingham is that there are a lot of parks, a lot of public facilities, like the Library of Birmingham. It's huge and it's very good. There are a lot of books. There are theatres like the Birmingham Rep, the Birmingham Hippodrome, and the city centre is quite comfortable. It's a good city centre. It's okay. Yes, and when I first moved here, I did not really think about Birmingham. I just thought about the area where I lived in, so I did not have the bigger picture of Birmingham as a city as a whole, because I did not really go out to the city very much.
What are your thoughts about and your relationship with Russia now?
Me and Russia have a very tight relationship. We have a very close relationship. Me and Russia are a family. Yes, we are a family, of course. I still talk to my friends, of course. I have my classmates on social media, most of them. I talk to my friends, my best friend, my best friends. And I of course talk to my family, talk to my grandparents every day. I call them every day. So and every day I look on the weather. What's the weather like in Kazan today? And I really like to compare the weather in Birmingham and Kazan, which is quite good, I think. Oh yes, actually, about the Russian weather, I have not said that. In Russia, we have 4 distinctive seasons. So it's autumn, winter, spring, and summer. Whereas in England, you pretty much have only one season: a dull spring, a very miserable spring, a terrible spring, all year. And in Russia, I would like to say that our winter is 6 months. Yes, if you are lucky, it can be longer than 6 months. And all of those 6 months, half a year, you have snow. So, and in deep snow, in -30, -29, you still have to go to school. It's normal. It's nothing special. Oh, -30, -33, you go to a shop, you get some food, you do anything, you play in the snow, you do ice skating and all of that. Oh yes, the thing about winter. What's like about winter is that in school, for PE, we would do skiing. We would take our skis and just ski. We would ski. We would ski in the surrounding areas of the school just for PE, and we would do that, which was so fun. I really enjoyed doing that, and I think it was great to ski for PE, and we would learn how to ski fast, how to do all sorts of things. And also for PE, some people would do ice skating, and now we pretty much do ice skating for PE, and hockey, because we had a stadium outside of school, but it was like a public stadium, but the school would use it more. Yes, and the summer, I really like the summer in Russia because it's very hot. In winter it's -32, -29, and in the summer it's +32, and plus 29. It's a lovely summer there. I really enjoy the summer there. It's much better than England. It's sunny. It does not rain. In rare occasions, and yes, it's wonderful. And as I've said, I keep in touch with everybody, with my grandparents, with my uncle, with everybody, and I always know what's going on in Russia because I read the Russian news, I watch things about Russia, and I have some and I watch the Russian TV on my phone most of the time because I really like to know what's going on and keep up with the news, and I read the Russian news as I've mentioned. I think I watch Russian YouTubers and all of that, so yes, we have a very close relationship, and every year we go back to Russia. So for example, in the summer we would go there for 1 month, which I really like. I would spend longer in Russia. But yes, 1 month, that's enough. And we go back in Christmas, because at Christmas you have about 18 days holiday in England, so we just go back to Russia. And before we used to go to Russia about 3 or 4 times a year. Now it's 2. Yes, 2 or 3 times a year, which I really like. Yes, and I bring Russian food, yes, to Birmingham because I really miss it. And my mum cooks me Russian food all the time. So she cooks me traditional food like traditional soups, porridge, some Russian cakes, and all of that. Yes, and when I go back, I eat Tartar food, my favorite Tartar food, and I really like it. And I want to buy a Tartar food, cooking book so I can cook all the things which I like at home in Birmingham.
What are your hopes for the future?
Well, I have very high aspirations for the future because when I finish my GCSEs next year, I want to do the A levels, and after I do the A levels, I want to go to university. And depending on and of course, I don't know what university I will go to because it all depends on me. It's all the future's in my hands. The future's here. It depends on the effort I put into my GCSEs and my A levels. The harder I work, the harder I work, I think the better my future will be now. And I'm aiming to get good GCSEs, to go to a good sixth form, to then get good A levels and go to a very good university. And I really want to go to Russell Group University, so for example Cambridge, Oxford, University of Birmingham, and all of that. And in the future, I want to study politics, law, sociology, human geography and philosophy, because this is the sphere in which I'm interested and I want to proceed with that. And personally I want to go into politics and international relations. Yes, and I must be a politician or just a member of the parliament or just work in the United Nations, or if the government is less corrupt than Russia, I would work in there. Maybe, who knows what the future will be like. We would have to live and see, maybe.
Do you consider yourself a Brummie?
Not at all. No. I'm not a Brummie at all. No. I would never define myself as a Brummie. No. I define myself as a Russian person, always a Russian Tartar person.